Welcome to the Skeptic Zone, the podcast from Australia for science and reason.
Yes, it's the Skeptic Zone podcast, episode number 575 for the 20th of October 2019. Richard Saunders here with you from sunny Sydney, Australia. In fact, today there's a street fair in the suburb of Marrickville, which I'll be going to a bit later on. And normally at these big street fairs you can see the odd bit of woo here and there. And speaking of seeing woo here and there, yesterday Peter Bowditch and I and Lara Benham with our friends Lyndon and Daryl attended the Mind Body Wallet, the Mind Body Spirit Festival here at Darling Harbour in Sydney. This wonderful event comes along every 6 months, and it's always worth visiting to see what new woo is to do. Did we find any new woo? Well, we'll find out at the top of the show where we report from Mind Body Wallet. Following that, it's a real example of the work being done by guerrilla skepticism on Wikipedia. Big shout out to Susan Gerbeck, who, with a lot of my friends right now, Brian Dunning, Banachek, and Celestia Ward from Squaring the Strange, and a whole host of other skeptics are attending SciCon in Las Vegas. Wish I could be there. Hopefully we'll get some reports in the coming weeks about that. Anyway, Susan Gerbeck and her team put together a page regarding naturopath Barbara O'Neill, who has been banned just recently from providing health services here in Australia. And we're going to look at the wiki page because it explains exactly why she was banned, and I found this absolutely fascinating. That's coming up a bit later on. Then we have Tim Mendham, the editor and executive officer of Australian Skeptics, reading from an article he wrote in the magazine The Skeptic, the journal from Australian Skeptics, all about free speech. This is part one of a two-part series on free speech, Fighting Words. This week, Fighting Words Part 1. Next week, Fighting Words Part 2. Then to round off the show, a report, an article that was written in the Weekend Australian magazine from noted skeptic Philip Adams here in Australia, one of the co-founders or co-patrons of the Australian Skeptics. He writes about the time James Randi came to Australia in 1980. Well, that's all for me at the moment. It's time for me to open the studio door, run down the hall, around the corner, then run down the steps. Oh yes, it's a bit complicated. Run into the kitchen and have a mug of instant soup. While I do that, I hope you enjoy the Skeptic Zone. It's that time once again. We're at Darling Harbour. I'm with Ratbag. That name has stuck with you forever, hasn't it?
It has, yes, unfortunately. But you know,
from Ratbag, ratbags.com or ratbag.com?
Ratbags.com.
Ratbags.com.
There's more than one there.
Now, you and I have been coming to Mind Body Wallet for well over a decade.
I went to the very first one ever held, and it was in the Park Royal Hotel in Parramatta. And about 50 people turned up. Yeah. I think the audience were outnumbered by the exhibitors.
And we've seen so many things, fads come and go over the years and years and years and years we've been coming to Mind Body Wallet. But there are the evergreens, of course.
Yeah, I think, though, it's definitely improved over the years. And the last time I was here...
In a manner of speaking.
Well, there are far fewer of the true medical quacks.
Right.
They've almost disappeared. I don't particularly care too much about some of the other people because they're just entertainment or voluntary taxation. Wave a crystal over your head. If they claim they can cure cancer, then we've got to do something about it.
Yeah, and I've heard that here. I've heard that here on more than one occasion. This product XYZ, this sloppy goop can cure cancer.
There was one here who had special water that had cancer curing properties.
Ooh.
And he said it comes from the pristine blue mountains of Sydney. I said, I live in Wentworth Falls in the Blue Mountains. Does that mean I'll never get cancer? And he just shut up and walked away. He wouldn't talk to me anymore.
Well, I remember very well about, it could have been easily 8 years ago, one of these energy discs, and the woman selling it or on the stand was saying that if you put this above a jug of water, you can use that water as sunblock. That's probably one of the worst I've heard here.
Yeah, that sort of thing really you've got to jump on.
Yeah.
But so a lot of it's just fun and games. But,
a lot of it is fun and games.
And I don't particularly care about that. Everybody's entitled to have their opinion and waste their money on things. I'm actually impressed that the town I live in now, the wellness centre closed when the chiropractor closed his office and moved out of town.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
So, when we used to walk up the street past it, my late dog, Cody, originating dog, he'd always growl as we walked past the wellness centre. He could obviously sense my mood.
That's right. Well, it doesn't look too busy at the moment. I mean, there are people milling around where we haven't gone in yet. We haven't yet gone down to... That reminds me of the article you wrote years ago when we went to see the Australian Vaccination Network. Virgil and... what was it? Virgil and Dante go down to Hurstville?
Yeah, that's right, something like that.
when you and I went, and that was well over a decade ago when we were in the audience for a Australian Vaccination Network talk.
Would have been, I think, 2003.
Easily.
Yeah. What I liked about that was that when I wrote the story up, I mentioned that we went to the Catholic club, the Hurstville Catholic Club,
that's
afterwards.
Right.
And I was attacked for being a Catholic.
Oh, really?
And then people started ranting on about pedophiles in the Catholic Church. And then people started... And I said, hang on.
Wait a minute.
It's a casino.
It's basically, folks, don't worry about the name. It's basically, it was a club where we could get a beer, wasn't it?
That's right.
And decompress after this.
It was across the road, so we went there for a beer.
That's what we did.
But I got all these attacks from these bizarre people, none of whom addressed the actual issue.
Well, that's the occasion where I was called later a Mouseketeer only evil. I like that one.
That's right, yeah.
Anyway, our little group is growing, and I think it's time we take the plunge.
We do.
Let's delve, let's descend into the pit that is Mind, Body, Wallet.
Forget it.
So we're passing all sorts of things here at the moment. Medical intuitive, people pretending to be doctors. Would you hire a plumbing intuitive, I wonder, or a lawyer who said they were a legal intuitive? Iridology on the other side. Fab brows. Oh, someone doing eyebrows, that's okay. Florence King, a psychic I've encountered before. And on it goes.
I had to get them.
So we've I snuck by quickly the Orgon Effects store. You had a close look. Now, these are the people who sell blocks of resin you plug into the wall and things that take away naughty vibrations from your phone and all this sort of stuff.
Well, my phone definitely has naughty vibrations when it goes off in my pocket.
Yes.
But what I did like was they actually got a thing called an Enna bear there.
An Enna bear?
Enna. E-N-E-R bear.
Enna bear.
And it appears to be a teddy bear which protects you from all sorts of things.
Oh.
So shortly the man's going to be giving a talk about the dreaded 5G radiation that's going to be coming everywhere.
No, really?
So I'm going to go along and listen to that because I got the feeling I'm going to be 5G'd shortly.
Yeah.
I mean, we've just been fluoridated where I live, so, the next step obviously is to mind control through 5G.
Things are looking up. I don't think this 5G will go on for too much longer because it'll be rolled out and everybody will forget about it.
Look, it's the way they also worry so much about 4G.
Yeah.
4-3 of an apartment.
Now, next door to Mind, Body, Wallet this year, Peter, we have the Home Show, which is twice the size, and it's great. I mean, there's things for your home, right? Fridges and pools and furniture and cladding.
Yeah.
But interspersed with bits of woo, we just passed some turmeric wonder drug there. And what's this? Bioelectronic medicine in the palm of your hand, it says.
That's what I'm going to ask.
What are we going to ask them? And we've seen one or two chiropractors in this section.
We have, yes.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure why they come here. I've also noticed that there are several people here that we watchers of late night television are very familiar with.
Oh, yes.
Such as the clever range of products, the Bambillo adjustable mattress, and a few other things that leap into your show when you're watching something that's recorded
Good
at 5
old
o'clock in the morning.
late night infomercials. They're well represented here. Well, I think it's time we wind up our little adventure here at the Mind, Body, Wallet and the Home Show. And let's pick up the action again in a moment, where we will be in Chinatown at our traditional debrief. Well, cheers, Ratbag.
Cheers.
Oh, that's a nice one. We didn't make it to the Chinatown after all. We made it halfway and got distracted by the Pump House Brewery, where we're going to indulge in some nice ale and pub food.
Well, I'm having a Kosciuszko.
Oh, that looks nice.
So in the town I come from is 1 metre below, half as high as the top of Kosciuszko.
1 metre... What's that?
It's Oberon. It's 1,133 metres.
Yeah.
Sorry, 1,113 metres. Kosciuszko is 2,228.
So for those international folks, Mount Kosciuszko is our highest mountain in Australia, and it's not that really high.
It's not that high at all, no. It's interesting that on the highest point in Oberon, there's the survey marker, which indicates the highest point. The council, presumably, have built a 1 metre high pile of dirt next to it, which if you stand at the top of that, is exactly as high, as half as high as the highest point in Australia.
That's cheating a little bit, I think. Anyway, so, Mind, Body, Wallet over for another half year, because it's every 6 months. It was more or less the same old, but the Scientologists weren't there.
Scientologists weren't.
No, I don't think I've ever seen Aquapol there, but Metatron health device wasn't there, but similar devices were there.
The man who used the computer to detect your allergies and then sells you a cure, he wasn't there.
Yes, he wasn't there. Yes, you're right. But there was a sort of a fresh batch of just general Commonwealth Garden psychics there, tarot readers.
I did miss the Happy High Herbs man.
Yes, he wasn't there. Yes.
Because that was just such enormous fun to talk to someone wearing an enormous multicoloured Mad Hatter's hat.
Yes.
While trying to tell you that he wasn't really selling you any illegal drugs. There were just some that worked the same way.
Yeah.
But he was probably wiped out by the two people there selling medicinal and cannabis.
There were, yes, I did see that. I bought some soap. I bought some nice scented, fragrant soap, lemony soap, very fragrant lemon soap, and coffee scented soap.
There's always some good things to buy there. There's interesting things. One thing that hasn't been there for a long time is the clothing people.
Right, the very colourful clothing. Yes.
They used to come down from up the north coast somewhere, and they had all these wonderful stuff made of bamboo fibre and so forth, and it was really nice clothes, looked good and reasonably priced. I think they probably were pushed out. That they came down all the way, spent 4 days in Sydney with accommodation, and found they just weren't selling enough stuff to make it worthwhile.
And I will say that at one point, a friend of ours, who, for the sake of privacy, will remain nameless at the moment, came to join us, and she has a very new bub, about 5 months old, and she determined that it wasn't the best place to be because of the likelihood of the high number of unvaccinated people wandering around.
I think that, if you look at the sort of clientele, the people who go to something like a Mind, Body, Spirit festival, I'd make a reasonable bet that there'd be an overlap with the anti-vaccination people as well.
Undoubtedly, yeah.
But they're going to believe that they can have their chakras aligned by crystals. They're probably going to believe that they can have them cured as well, and don't worry about disease.
Yeah. But again, I mean, it was much of the same old thing we've seen for year after year after year. A few new things come and go.
Yeah.
It's interesting to think about it changing after all these years. There was some astrology. It wasn't big.
No.
More tarot than astrology.
Yeah, I don't think I saw an astrologer. Certainly tarot, there were a couple of those.
Yeah.
And also there's obviously the big room full of psychics reading in all sorts of different ways. So
the den of psychics. The den of psychics. That was still there.
At $50 a reading, I'm thinking of booking myself a stand next year.
Our friend Lara joined us, and she bought some.
They are cats and dogs and space.
They're lovely. Anyway, so
I've noticed that the first time we came, it took us all day. Now we wander through the place in about 2 hours. And and we've seen it all before.
Oh, well, we're about to enjoy our... oh, yes, Lara, you saw something new?
I'm just thinking that, I can't remember the name of it, the Orgon Energy people who sell the things which claim to get rid of harmful electromagnetic radiation from this, that, the other. So obviously they jump on every time there's something new that they think they can cling to. So today they had little tiny things that you could buy to stick on your smartwatches on the back of them to protect your wrist from... and I assume the rest of your body, but to protect your wrist and your body from any harmful electromagnetic waves that are coming from those devices.
Watch.
Yeah, so like the Fitbits or all of those smartwatches. Like I don't even think that they are. I don't think that they are actually even emitting any form of harmful electromagnetic radiation. So I'm not sure.
Smartwatch protectors. That's a new one. That's a new one on me. There you go.
The man who was selling those was also going to give a talk about the dangers of 5G radiation from the phones as well. So presumably we'll be back next year with even bigger, even stronger things to protect you, the new 5G phones.
Folks, as I've said year after year after year, and people ask me why I keep going to these things and why other people keep going, well, it's to keep up to date with what's going on. It's so we know what we're talking about. It's to see what shonky products are being sold to the general public and to see if we can then take any action against them. So, yes, visiting a spirit fair is worthwhile, especially when there's health implications.
Allora ciao, io mi chiamo Professore Dave, io ti voglio insegnare tutte le cose sulla scienza. Parliamo di fisica, di chimica, biologia, astronomia, matematica e tante altre cose. Guardami su YouTube, arrivederci. Hey everyone, this is Professor Dave. I want to teach you about all kinds of things regarding science. I want to tell you about physics. I want to tell you about chemistry, biology, astronomy, math, and many, many more things. Come check me out on YouTube. The channel is called Professor Dave Explains. Take it easy.
He knows a lot about the science stuff. Professor Dave Explains.
Now, on last week's show, we had a report from Susan Gobick from Guerrilla Skepticism on Wikipedia, and she was telling us of some of the recent activities, some of the recent work being done by her editors, including working on the page of a naturopath. Well, that naturopath happened to be Barbara O'Neill, who we reported some weeks ago has been banned here in Australia from providing healthcare services. And Susan's very kind. She's thanking Mandy Lee Noble, April Hoy, and others for helping get the Wikipedia page together. And she gives a special thanks to Dr. Harriet Hall, the Skepdoc. And of course, as long-time Skeptic Zone listeners know, we regularly run promotions for the video series by Dr. Harriet Hall. And if you haven't seen those, I'll do a special link in this week's show notes. It's really worth your time to watch those. It gives you a great background and understanding into things like chiropractic, homeopathy, energy medicine, and so on. Anyway, I was very interested to find out exactly why Barbara O'Neill was banned from operating or offering health services here in Australia, and the Wikipedia page put together is comprehensive. It says, in part, Barbara O'Neill is an Australian naturopath and lecturer on health issues, who in 2019 was banned for life by the New South Wales Health Care Complaints Commission, HCCC, from providing free or paid health services. The ban followed an HCCC investigation which found she lacked any health-related qualifications, a degree, diploma, or membership in an accredited health organisation. It also found that she provided dangerous, unsupported health advice to vulnerable groups. This included advising parents to feed their infants raw goat milk or almond milk blended with dates or banana instead of formula, and recommending that cancer patients forego chemotherapy in favour of baking soda wraps and dietary changes. It goes on to say she ran the Misty Mountain Health Retreat near Kempsey, New South Wales, with her husband, charging clients up to $3,100 per week for treatments and health retreats. She also provided for-fee telephone consultations. According to O'Neill's website, she provided detox services claiming to aid in recovery from heart disease, diabetes, hormonal imbalance, chronic fatigue, candida funguses, drug addiction, cancer, heartburn, and obesity. According to the HCCC investigation, O'Neill falsely claimed to be able to cure cancer and urged patients not to use chemotherapy. O'Neill promoted the discredited claim that cancer is a fungus. She urged her clients to treat their cancer with baking soda wraps and claimed without evidence that one doctor had cured 90% of his patients' cancer with baking soda injections. Anti-vaccination views. O'Neill discouraged immunization, claiming that vaccinations are unnecessary. In one of her YouTube videos, she stated that, quote, children can be naturally vaccinated against tetanus by drinking plenty of water, going to bed early, not eating junk food, and running around the hills, end quote. She further claimed, without evidence, that, quote, neurotoxins in vaccines have caused an epidemic of ADHD, autism, epilepsy, and cot death, end quote. O'Neill has campaigned against the Australian No Jab, No Pay pro-immunisation initiative. Dietary advice on infants. O'Neill has recommended that parents who are unable to breastfeed their infant use substitutes besides formula. These have included unpasteurized goat milk and a mix of almond milk and dates or banana. Co-author of the National Health and Medical Research Council's Australian Infant Feeding Guidelines, Professor Jane Scott, has stated this advice is, quote, definitely not safe, end quote, and that, quote, there is a real danger here for infants as these will not support healthy growth and development, end quote. There's much more on this page, including the HCCC also found that O'Neill cannot recognise and provide health advice within the limits of her training and experience, and had not maintained records of the advice she had provided to clients. While O'Neill has claimed to have received diplomas in naturopathy, nutrition and dietetics from two now defunct organisations, the HCCC found that she did not have any health-related degree or diploma. On September 24, 2019, the HCCC banned O'Neill for life from providing health services, regardless of whether or not she accepted payment for doing so. An HCCC spokesperson said that O'Neill's activities were being monitored closely and the prohibition order applies in the Australian states of New South Wales, Victoria, Queensland and South Australia. He also stated, quote, in general, if the material is accessible in those jurisdictions online, then it is considered to be delivering a health service, end quote. And that, quote, presenting health education in any form or delivering health services would be a breach of her prohibition order, end quote. Violating the ban could be punished with a prison sentence of up to 6 months. Although, of course, it seems she has her army of supporters, because it says here, following the decision, a petition was circulated calling for the HCCC to reverse its decision. As of October 2019, the petition had gained 36,000 signatures. Although she has been banned from providing health advice in Australia, O'Neill's website states that, quote, Barbara O'Neill, author, educator, naturopath and nutritionist, retired, is available for public speaking to companies, community groups or churches outside of Australia, and is sure to please those looking for motivation to live a longer, healthier and happier life, end quote. The month following the HCCC's decision, O'Neill was scheduled to conduct a wellness program in the United States at a cost of $2,350 per person. In late 2019, O'Neill and her husband's Misty Mountain Health Retreat came under investigation by the ACNC for alleged breaches to charity law. Under its health promotion charity status, the retreat had received government grants and various tax concessions. In defending its status, the retreat had claimed it had provided diet, exercise and health advice to Indigenous Australians and people with chronic and terminal illnesses. So there is just a sampling of the work being done at the moment by the Guerrilla Skepticism on Wikipedia. And it's quite impressive that they put all this information together in one place on Wikipedia. And now I know and you know the reasons why, the reasons behind the decision of the HCCC to ban Barbara O'Neill from providing health advice.
Hi, this is Heidi Robertson from the Northern Rivers Vaccination Supporters. We are a group of concerned citizens dedicated to promoting good science and common sense in our region, the far north coast of New South Wales. This area, famous for its natural beauty and relaxed lifestyle, also has the lowest rates of vaccination in Australia. We are out to change that by challenging the myths and misinformation and by providing good evidence-based information to the community. We'd love for you, no matter where you are in the world, to join our fight. Please visit our webpage at www.nrvs.info. We also have a link there to our Facebook page. Tweet us at NRVaxSupporters, that's VAX, and check us out on Wikipedia by searching for Northern Rivers Vaccination Supporters. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Tim Mendham, Executive Officer of Australian Skeptics and editor of our magazine, The Skeptic. This article I'm reading today is called Fighting Words, and it comes out of The Skeptic from June 2019, which is volume 39, number 2. You're looking at freedom of speech. And freedom of speech is an issue which is often raised by proponents of alternative medicine, certainly the anti-vaxxers, and a lot of other people who want to believe they can express anything they like and not be criticised or stopped from doing it. Freedom of speech has a long history, and that's what we'll look at today. Everyone knows the famous statement on free speech by the 18th century French philosopher Voltaire. And that statement is, "I disapprove of what you say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it." It's an oft-cited quote that is used to justify the liberalisation of expression, and a view that is typical of Enlightenment thinking. Only, like a lot of our understanding of free speech, it's wrong. The statement was actually written by Evelyn Beatrice Hall, aka S.G. Talentine, in 1906. She coined the sentence in a book called The Friends of Voltaire, an anecdotal biography telling the stories of 10 men who were contemporaries and friends of the philosopher. The sentence appeared in a chapter entitled Helvetius the Contradiction, about Claude Adrien Helvetius, author of a book called On Mind, or De l'Esprit, if you want to be French, and was supposed to indicate the sort of approach Voltaire may have had, but not what he actually ever said. So anyone who quotes it and says it's Voltaire is wrong. You can tell them that. You can tell them the skeptics told you. Like the famous love and peace prose poem, Desiderata, go placidly amid the noise and haste, etc., 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 that first appeared in the 1920s but achieved fame in the 1960s and 70s when it was proposed by some to be a document from the 17th century. Like that, the Voltaire quote has the imprimatur of a history that it does not deserve. And like Desiderata, reality is a lot more complicated than that, as is the notion of free speech. The Oxford Dictionary defines free speech as the right to express any opinion without censorship or restraint. The Australian Macquarie Dictionary is less absolute than that. The right to express oneself and impart one's opinion in speech or writing or any form of public media. Of course, dictionaries don't always live in the real world, and it would be unlikely that any society would give free rein to any and every statement by any and every member, regardless of content, intent or impact. Free speech comes at a cost. Older civilizations have often taken a simplistic view of human rights and free speech. Basically, don't rubbish the ruler and you'll be okay. According to the New Internationalist, China did not develop an idea of rights that were inherent and natural to the individual, as had arisen in Western Europe. However, the ideally organised Confucian society was supposed to provide social welfare and just treatment. People were expected to know their place. The powerful were expected to behave with benevolence, and failure to do so could result in forfeiture of power. On the other side of the world, Republican Rome was witness to several cases where political speech was suppressed by violence. The most infamous case was the murder of the reformer Tiberius Gracchus in 133 BCE by the leaders of the Senate. However, the killing was not done legally or by the Roman state. It was essentially aristocratic mob violence. The Republican state never created the legal tools to formally censor political speech. This changed with the arrival in Rome of the emperors, beginning with Caesar Augustus in 27 BCE. When supreme power is invested in a single person, they tend to be more sensitive to criticism from their subjects. Libel, and by which we mean libel against the emperor or his government, was prosecuted as treason under Augustus and by all following emperors. Book burning, or people burning, was par for the course and continued well into the Middle Ages. For instance, as the menace of printing spread, more governments attempted to centralise control. The French crown repressed printing, and the printer Etienne Dolet was burned at the stake in 1546. A few years earlier, the first edition of the Catholic Church's Index Librorum Prohibitarum, which is the list of prohibited books, had appeared not in Rome, but in Catholic Netherlands in 1529, Venice in 1543, and Paris in 1551. The Church continued to publish the list until it was discontinued in 1966. At the peak of its empire, Venice had rules that punished anyone who criticised not the government, but the city-state itself. Such was the pride the citizens showed towards La Serenissima, no doubt amplified by the city's rather tenuous hold on existence, both geopolitically and geologically. Foreigners who maligned the state were exiled, locals were imprisoned, if not murdered. But while free speech against the Venetian state was outlawed, free speech against individuals of the public was not. Gossip, innuendo, and scheming were a currency in Venice. The term imbroglio refers to a part of the piazzetta of St. Mark's Square, where people gathered to elect their leaders and where they could share the latest dirty laundry. If they weren't gossiping, they were accusing others of crimes by dropping notes into the Bocce de Leone, which are sort of post boxes that were scattered around the city with a slot in the mouth of a lion for the accusatory notes. In the 19th century, there began a more nuanced approach to free speech and the responsibilities that entailed. The concept extended beyond criticism of the powers that be, whether monarch, government or church, to statements that impact on the broader community. One of the most influential figures on personal liberties was the English philosopher John Stuart Mill. His book On Liberty, which came out in 1859, addresses the nature and limits of the power that can be legitimately exercised by society over the individual. His conception of liberty justified the freedom of the individual in opposition to unlimited state and social control. Not to say he always felt that way, his concern for liberty did not extend to all individuals and all societies. He stated that despotism is a legitimate mode of government in dealing with barbarians. Nonetheless, for the non-barbarians, Mill opened up a landscape of liberties of expression. There ought to exist the fullest liberty of professing and discussing as a matter of ethical conviction any doctrine, however immoral it may be considered. He added, if all mankind minus one were of one opinion, and only one person were of the contrary opinion, mankind will be no more justified in silencing that one person than he, if he had the power, will be justified in silencing mankind. He's talking about absolute freedom of opinion and sentiment on all subjects, practical or speculative, scientific, moral or theological. If liberty of expression is stifled, he says, the price paid is a sort of intellectual pacification that sacrifices the entire moral courage of the human mind. But he then raises an issue which has resounded through philosophical and practical debate on freedom of speech ever since, and that's called the harm principle. Mills suggests that we need some rules of conduct to regulate the actions of members of a political community. The limitation he places on free expression is one very simple principle, which states that the only purpose for which power can be rightfully exercised over any member of a civilised community against his will is to prevent harm to others. The member's own good, either physical or moral, is not a sufficient warrant. He cannot rightfully be compelled to do or forbear because it will be better for him to do so, because it will make him happier, because in the opinion of others to do so would be wise or even right. The only part of the conduct of anyone for which he is amenable to society is that which concerns others. In the part which merely concerns himself, his independence is of right absolute. Over himself, over his own body and mind, the individual is sovereign. In other words, free speech is not an invitation to, as the Oxford Dictionary says, the right to express any opinions without censorship or restraint. Other members of society are involved and consideration must be given to them. That's part one of this article on free speech. In next week's, we look at the 20th century and the development of international and global movements for free speech.
The Skeptic Magazine, the journal from Australian skeptics. Subscribe online to the world's second oldest skeptical magazine. Visit www.skeptics.com.au and click the publications link. You can also find there over 30 years of back issues free to download. The Skeptic, the magazine from Australian skeptics. Tricks of the Trade by Philip Adams. Published in the Weekend Australian magazine, October the 12th, 2019. His stage name, The Amazing Randy, made him sound like a porn star. But James Randi was and remains one of the world's most famous magicians, a big influence on the likes of Penn and Teller. Not only because of his technical mastery of the black arts of conjuring and illusions, but because of his work in debunking frauds like spoonbender Uri Geller. Whenever scientists found themselves baffled by Uri or his ilk, they'd call in Canadian-American Randy, who'd promptly replicate the psychic phenomenon that seemed to be occurring in the laboratory. Psychokinesis, telepathy, distant viewing, all cons, like the goings-on in seances or cold readings of a Doris Stokes or talking to the dead on the telly. Randy, now 91, was a key to the success of the Committee for the Scientific Investigations of Claims of the Paranormal, now known as the Committee for Skeptical Inquiry, a body with Nobel laureates by the dozen. Alarmed by everything from psychic surgery to the fad of ufology, Dick Smith and I wanted to see a similar body here. As the first step in establishing the Australian Skeptics, we brought Randy to Australia. Among our first efforts, the debunking of water divining. Dick, Richard Carlton and I contributed to a large cash prize for anyone who could divine water under test conditions. The creme de la creme of Oz diviners tried and utterly failed. Over the years, our prize money grew, ready to be won by anyone who could demonstrate any psychic power whatever. Many tried, spoonbenders and the rest of the psychic circus. Nobody won. Later, Randy's US supporters increased the prize to $1 million. The check remains uncashed. But let me describe Randy's demo of psychokinesis, moving an object with the power of the mind, the day we met in Dick's office. He plucked a cigarette I was about to light from my lips, dirty habit, and placed it on Dick's desk. Then, as a dozen journos and cameramen crowded around Randy, he extended vibrating fingers towards my Marlboro. And then it began to move, up and down the desk. When Randy asked us how to guess how he'd done it, everyone had a theory, mostly involving static electricity. "No," he said. "While your eyes and camera were on the gap between my fingers and the cigarette, I was blowing it. Simple as that, and none of you trained observers noticed." The classic art of misdirection, crucial to conjurers. A second or two of distraction is all Randy needed to blow a cigarette, or for David Copperfield to make the Statue of Liberty disappear right before your eyes. I've seen him do it. It's also the basic tool of political performance. Distract, dissemble, avoid the question, change the subject. Like a kid flipping cards on a New York City pavement, politicians are the masters of misdirection. We must always be skeptical of all those who would con us. Not only conjurers like Geller, but also the entrepreneurs, evangelists and influencers who want your money. And even more skeptical of the politicians who want to rule our lives. The world champion misdirector? Trump, using outrageous tweets to distract from what he's really up to. Misdirection made him POTUS. So, the 3 lessons from my Marlboro? 1. Join the Australian Skeptics. 2. Give up smoking. 3. Watch the lips of politicians. When they're moving, they're probably lying. But one thing is absolutely 100% certain. They'll be blowing. And that was Tricks of the Trade by Philip Adams, who is a co-founder of Australian Skeptics, published on the 12th of October 2019 in the Weekend Australian magazine.
Sweet cappuccino. Soy latte.
Hey, Richard.
Oh, hi, Trish. Hi. Would you like a coffee?
Yeah, thanks. What are you working on?
I'm trying to come up with a new promo to play on the Skeptic Zone.
Who's it for?
The Good Thinking Society in the UK. You know, the...
Oh, yeah, I know them. The guys who recently chased the homeopaths out of the UK public health system.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, they campaigned and lobbied government for a while, and now you cannot get homeopathy on the NHS. So they can now spend public money on healthcare that works.
Oh, right. Look, I'll mention that in the promo. Now, their website is goodthinkingsociety.org.
And that website is a good resource for learning more about quackery.
Ah, thanks, Trish. That gives me something good to think about. Thank you for listening to The Skeptic Zone. Next week we have Fighting Words, Part 2 from Tim Mendham. And in the following weeks, even more reports and articles that Tim has written. In fact, not long ago, he came over here to the studios, and that's where we recorded his items and articles from The Skeptic. Also coming up, I hope, as I said in the introduction, to bring you some reports and interviews from SciCon going on as we speak. We speak as I record. That would be better. Maybe we can catch up with Brian Dunning and get a report about how the screening of his documentary went. This is Science Friction. This is the documentary where scientists and science communicators have been taken out of context in so-called documentaries on TV and so on. And sometimes they are made by careful edits to appear to say the exact opposite of what they really did say. And I can't wait to see that documentary for myself. Thank you to those people in the last week who did, in fact, chip in at SkepticZone.tv, $11 to mark the 11 years of the Skeptic Zone. Thank you very much, you people. That's really wonderful that you did that. I'm very grateful. And thank you to the new Patreons I've picked up in the last little while. Great to have you on board. Don't forget, if you do chip in via Patreon, there are a couple of award levels. So if you chip in $10 or more, or you can discover that for yourself at SkepticZone.tv. It's absolutely necessary for the continuation of the Skeptic Zone. But for this week, this is Richard Saunders signing off from Sydney, Australia. You've been listening to the Skeptic Zone podcast. Please visit our website at www.skepticzone.tv for show notes, contacts, and to access the back catalogue of episodes going back to 2008. You can follow the Skeptic Zone podcast on Twitter at Skeptic Zone, visit our Facebook page, or leave a review on iTunes. You can also support the Skeptic Zone via Patreon or PayPal. The Skeptic Zone podcast is an independent production. The views and opinions expressed on the Skeptic Zone are not necessarily those of Australian skeptics or any other skeptical organisation.